And somewhere in the Ford pit, a man who has never lost a minute of sleep over a stock price is standing in soaked khakis, shaking. Henry Ford II is watching three cars he spent $10 million to build try to destroy the most dominant racing team on the planet. Not because it made business sense, not because his board approved it, because Enzo Ferrari embarrassed him, personally. This is a revenge story. And the car at the center of it, the GT40, was never supposed to work. If you stick with this one to the end, you're going to understand why this car changed everything. Not just racing, not just Ford, but the entire idea of what an American car company could be. And if that sounds like something worth your time, hit subscribe now, because this channel is for people who actually want to know the real story behind the machines. Let's go back. 1963. Ford Motor Company is printing money. The Mustang is about to launch. Dealerships can't keep cars on the lot. But Henry Ford II, they called him the Deuce, has a problem. Ford's racing image is non-existent. Chevrolet has the Corvette. Ferrari owns Europe. Ford has sedans. So the Deuce gets an idea, a shortcut. He'll just buy Ferrari, and he nearly does. Ford sends a team to Maranello. Lawyers, accountants, translators. They spend months negotiating. The deal is essentially done. Ford will acquire Ferrari for somewhere around $18 million. $18 million for the most iconic racing name in history. It's a steal, even by 1963 standards. Then Enzo kills it. At the last minute, and the exact reasons depend on who you ask, Enzo Ferrari walks away from the table. Some say it was a clause about racing control. Some say Enzo never intended to sell at all, that he used Ford's offer to squeeze a better deal out of Fiat. Some say he simply looked at the Ford delegation in their American suits and decided he would rather die than hand his name to Detroit. Whatever the reason, the result was the same. Enzo Ferrari told Henry Ford II, the grandson of Henry Ford, to go home. The Deuce did not take it well. The story goes, and multiple people who were in the room have confirmed versions of this, that Ford's response was something close to, "We're going to build a car, and we're going to bury him at Le Mans." Not, "We'll consider a racing program." Not, "Let's explore our options." Bury him at his own race. Here's what nobody tells you about the GT40. The first version was a catastrophe. Ford contracted the original design to Lola Cars in England, Eric Broadley's small racing outfit. The chassis was based on Broadley's Lola Mark VI, which had shown promise at Le Mans in '63. Ford threw money and engineers at it. The car that emerged, the GT40, named because it stood just 40 inches tall, looked absolutely stunning. Low, wide, aggressive, a mid-mounted 4.2-liter V8. It looked like it should win everything. It couldn't finish anything. Le Mans 1964. Ford enters the GT40 for the first time. They bring multiple cars. Every single one retires. Gearbox failures, suspension failures, fire. Ferrari wins. Again. Le Mans 1965. Ford comes back with improvements. The car is faster now. Genuinely fast, clocking over 200 miles per hour on the Mulsanne. But fast doesn't matter if you can't last 24 hours. Once again, every Ford retires. Mechanical failures across the board. Ferrari wins. Again. 2 years. Millions of dollars. 0 finishes. The automotive press was not kind. And inside Ford, people were starting to ask whether the Deuce's vendetta was worth the humiliation. But here's the thing about spending your own family's money on a grudge. Nobody can tell you to stop. Ford made one decision that changed everything. They handed the program to Carroll Shelby. Now, Shelby's reputation in 1965 was already enormous. The Cobra had proven that a Texan chicken farmer with a heart condition could build cars that terrified Europe. But the GT40 project was a different animal entirely. This wasn't bolting a Ford V8 into a British roadster. This was a full-endurance racing program targeting the most grueling event in motorsport. Shelby's approach was simple. Brutal, actually. He ripped out the elegant 4.2-liter engine and dropped in a 7.0-liter. That's 427 cubic inches, big block V8. The same family of engine you could buy in a Galaxy. The purists were horrified. A 7-liter engine in a car designed for a 4-liter? The weight balance would be wrong. The cooling would be impossible. The gearbox would never survive. Shelby didn't care. He wanted one thing: more power than any Ferrari could answer. And he got it. Around 485 horsepower in race trim, though some dyno sheets suggest closer to 500, in a car that weighed roughly 2,600 pounds. The car that rolled out of Shelby's shop in Venice, California, was designated the Mark II. It looked almost identical to the original GT40. Under the skin, it was a completely different machine. And it was angry. There's no other word for it. Drivers who tested it at Riverside described the acceleration as violent. Not fast, violent. The rear tires would break loose in third gear. The sound was not the high scream of a Ferrari V12. It was a low, physical thing. A compression wave. You felt it before you heard it. June 18th, 1966. The Circuit de la Sarthe. Ford brought 8 cars. 8. 3 Mark IIs entered by Shelby American, 2 by Holman Moody, 3 by Allen Man Racing. This was not a racing effort. This was an invasion. Ferrari brought the new 330 P3. Beautiful, fast, proven pedigree, but against 8 Fords with 7-liter engines. Even Enzo knew the math was difficult. The race started at 4 in the afternoon, the old Le Mans tradition. And within the first hour, the Fords showed what they were. The Mark IIs were simply faster than anything else on the circuit. On the Mulsanne Straight, 3.5 miles of unbroken road, the Fords were clocking over 210 miles per hour. The Ferraris couldn't answer. But Le Mans is 24 hours. Speed means nothing if the car dies at hour 6. Through the night, Ferraris began to retire. Mechanical problems. One by one, the red cars disappeared. By dawn, and this is the part that must have felt surreal to anyone in the Ford pit, 3 GT40 Mark IIs were running first, second, and third. Nothing else was close. Ford had what they came for: total domination. Ferrari was broken. And then Ford made a decision that is still debated 60 years later. With hours to go and a commanding 1-2-3 lead, Ford executives decided they wanted a photo finish. All 3 cars crossing the line together, side by side. The perfect image for Monday's newspapers. The drivers were told to slow down, to hold position, to stage the ending. Think about that for a second. You're a racing driver. You've been awake for nearly 24 hours. You've driven through rain, through darkness, through mechanical problems, at speeds that could kill you in a heartbeat. And now your employer is telling you to stop racing so the photographers can get a better shot. Ken Miles was leading. The Texan, though he was actually from Birmingham, England, which is a detail people always get wrong, was in the number 1 car, running the fastest laps, and he had been told to slow down and wait for the other 2 cars to catch up. Miles did it. He lifted off. He let Bruce McLaren and Chris Amon close the gap. The 3 Fords came down to the finish together. But here's where it got ugly. The rules at Le Mans stated that the winner was determined not just by who crossed the line first, but by total distance covered. McLaren and Amon had started further back on the grid. which meant that even though Miles crossed the line at virtually the same moment, some footage suggests he was actually slightly ahead. McLaren and Eamon were declared the winners because they had technically covered more ground. Ken Miles lost the race he had dominated, not because he was slower, not because his car broke, because his own team told him to slow down, and then the rules punished him for it. Miles never said much about it publicly. That wasn't his style, but people who knew him said it ate at him. He had been the fastest car on the track for almost the entire race, and the trophy went to someone else. 2 months later, August 17th, 1966, Ken Miles was killed testing an experimental Ford racing prototype at Riverside. He was 67 days removed from the race he should have won. I can't verify whether those two things are connected in any way beyond timing, but the timing itself is hard to sit with. The 1966 result broke Ferrari's grip on Le Mans in a way that never fully recovered. Ford won again in 67, 68, and 69. 4 consecutive victories. The GT40 became, and I'll state this as plainly as I can, the most successful American racing car ever built for international competition. Nothing else comes close. But the legacy is stranger and heavier than a win record. The GT40 proved that Detroit could compete with the European constructors on their own ground in their most sacred race, and not just compete, dominate. It proved that cubic inches and corporate money could beat tradition and hand-built craftsmanship. Whether that's inspiring or depressing depends entirely on how you feel about racing. And at the center of it, always, is the fact that it started with a grudge, not a business plan, not a market study. A man got insulted in a room in Italy, and 4 years later, 3 blue cars crossed a finish line in France. 55 original GT40s were built in various configurations. An original Mark I in good condition will sell today for somewhere between $4 and $7 million. A Mark II, one of the Le Mans cars, is essentially priceless. The few that exist in private hands almost never come to market. But here's what stays with me. You can go to the Henry Ford Museum in Dearborn, Michigan, and stand next to one. 40 inches tall, wider than you expect. The paint still carries that particular shade of blue, Guardsman blue, Ford called it, and if you crouch down and look at it from the side, at eye level, you can see exactly what the marshals at Le Mans would have seen in the rain at 3 in the morning. Just a shape, low and fast and gone. Here's my question, and I actually want to know what you think. Was Ford right to stage that finish? Did the photo matter more than the race? Or did they rob Ken Miles of the one thing he'd earned? Drop your answer in the comments. I've read every theory. I still don't have a clean one. If this is your first time here and you made it this far, you're the kind of viewer this channel is built for. Subscribe. More stories like this are coming, and they only get stranger from here.